This is Hit Publish, the first podcast dedicated to uncovering and rogue businesses secretly navigating the ever-changing digital landscape. Each episode, we'll play host to leaders in their fields discussing their adoption of the latest digital trends and related technologies, addressing the total effects on the way we market businesses and brands across all of our industries. And occasionally, we'll pay homage to the technology giants who dictate our online lives and the platforms they provide, reminding ourselves of the self-inflicted and inevitable misuse of personal data. So if this all sounds good to you, skip the terms and conditions, ignore the privacy policy, and hit subscribe. On this episode of Hit Publish.
RankBrain is the equivalent of Skynet. It's the first artificial intelligent program designed to think like we would. And if you end up on a page which you can't navigate back to, if you land on a page with stuffed keywords, well, that user experience is poor. Google are referring to it as their biggest ever upgrade. Not maybe their biggest core algorithm, but their biggest advancement in probably 5-10 years. If we're talking an ultra competitive industry with zero content on there, I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but I would think that that would be a very slow and painful process.
On this episode, we met up with Alan from Digitel once again for the second of our two-part episode covering all things SEO. We spoke with Alan about the relevance of keyword optimization since the launch of the Hummingbird algorithm back in 2013. We also discussed RankBrain and Google's latest algorithm update, BERT, which has and will have a significant impact on search and the importance of voice search. If you haven't already, go back and listen to part 1 as Alan and Chris share top tips as well as some relevant key takeaways that will help you to achieve your search ranking goals. Hello and welcome to another episode of Hit Publish, episode 9, part 2.
Yep. It's our first sequel. Sequels are never as good as the original, aren't they? So this.
Well, you could say Terminator 2, much better than Terminator 1.
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Aliens 2,
Liquid
much
Metal.
better. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, good.
Wrong. So last episode we was talking all about search engine optimization, and we were joined by Alan, who has joined us again today. Hi, Alan.
Hi Ian, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. So we're going to finish off our conversation where we started. We covered lots of subjects previously. Today we're going to sort of focus on RankBrain, the Hummingbird algorithm, and how that sort of changed the face of keyword optimization. So we're going to get a bit involved there. So let's jump straight into it. I wanted to talk about, first of all, how relevant or not so relevant these days keywords actually are. Obviously, it's a big part of search engine optimization and still is, but I feel that algorithms have got clever enough now that 5-10 years ago, we hear those horror stories of people just stuffing in keywords or even I remember you told me one story, Chris, where some people would hide keywords in white on a white background.
Nice.
And
Old school.
Exactly. yeah, indeed. Yeah. And obviously Google sort of realized, well,
That's stupid.
yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah. And keywords sort of, I believe, correct if I'm wrong, have slowly sort of the relevancy of standalone keywords have become less and less important. And it's more about other factors. And the algorithms have become clever enough to sort of dictate that. So what do you think with regards to keywords? Still as relevant as they were 5-10 years ago?
Okay, so I think I'll answer that with a different kind of approach. So most people who do or don't know SEO is one thing, but most people, I'm sure everyone around this room has heard of Sesame Street.
Indeed.
Everyone heard of Sesame Street?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a character called Bert. Now, Bert is the character of the latest Hummingbird algorithm. So we talk about RankBrain. RankBrain came out in about 2015 time, give or take. They've been testing it as Google always do and what have you. BERT is an addition to that. So if I cover RankBrain first, I could tell you what BERT is, and that will completely address the question about keyword optimization, if I may.
Yeah.
Is everyone all right with that?
Yes. This has gone a strange way. But carry on, please.
Right. So RankBrain is all about user experience. And it's the first, we were talking about films a minute ago, weren't we? And actually, we talked about Terminator. Now, this is the analogy I always use for RankBrain. Okay. Terminator, Skynet. So everyone remembers Skynet, the down of the world. RankBrain is the equivalent of Skynet. It's the first artificial intelligent program designed to think like we would.
Jesus, shut it down.
Yeah, give it a couple of years. We'll all be a bit worried, I think. So what happens is in 2015, they knew that people were doing exactly that thing, Chris, where they would hide text in different fonts that would match the background. There would be this keyword optimization and stuffing, and you would end up with a site which really didn't offer a good user experience, but would ultimately be at the top of Google because it had so many common keywords and
nonsense in there.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
So what they did is they thought, look, we can't change the rule book, but what we can do is we can improve it. So we can make it easier to find legitimacy rather than, fabrication. So what they did is they brought this algorithm in called RankBrain. And when it first came out, it was new kid on the block. I mean, it's 2015. It was really quite a big core update, if I'm being honest, probably bigger than the rest, I would say. And what it's designed to do is improve user experience. So if we go back on what we spoke about in our 67-minute podcast last week, user experience came out a lot, didn't it? Doing it by the book, not cheating the system, not doing it wrong. You land on a website on your mobile phone and the structure is wrong. You go from one page to a random another one. You land on a page in the listings because it's been designed for SEO. You click onto the site, you go to a different page and you can't go back because it doesn't really exist. These are frustrating things. And more of us now are on our mobiles and we're looking for things with a quick instance. And if you end up on a page which you can't navigate back to, if you land on a page with stuffed keywords, well, that user experience is poor. So they brought RankBrain in to, again, like we said, they don't change the rules, they update them. They brought RankBrain in to kind of cut the dross off. And it had a humongous impact. A ridiculous amount of websites soon after October actually got hit by this. What happens is every 6 weeks, they will turn it off in effect. Not literally, but it will down itself for a little bit of time,
right? And
it will self-learn. It's a self-learning algorithm. So it will, based on the previous 6 weeks, it will work out what's got better. In effect, turn itself back on like with a reboot and be more aggressive again. And then, so what's happened over the last I can't believe it's 4 years, but over the last 4 years, we think it's 52 weeks in a year, every 6 weeks that's being turned off and re-uploaded again. That is one advanced program. So what's happened is more appropriate websites are at the top of Google. Then we talk about, as you said, Dan, so I'm rambling. I'm so sorry. I'm talking a lot. Then we talk about keyword optimization and are the days of old school keywords gone? The BERT algorithm is literally just been rolled out last month. I mean, it is literally, Google are referring to it as their biggest ever upgrade. Not maybe their biggest core algorithm, but their biggest advancement in probably 5-10 years. And what this does is it looks at the version of the words you're using. So I was reading a really cool blog the other day about bird watching. So if you were to write bird, and maybe you guys have heard of it as well, but if you write bird watching in a few months ago, you could get bird watching clubs, you could get bird watching groups, you could get bird watching tours. And basically what it does is it'll actually read the remainder of that content. And what it will do is it will actually start to make assumptions. And using it's not part of RankBrain, it's like a best friend too. So imagine it more like an extension to your Chrome browser. It kind of sits in parallel with it. So user experience improves, but content is better. Can you optimize a site for BERT? No, you really can't optimize a site for BERT. There's nothing that an SEO agency could possibly do to fit in line with this core algorithm, apart from the one obvious thing, which is write good content. Actually make it proper. So if you're going to talk about something in detail, what would you do? You'd have a deeper, more relevant page. And again, Google said that all the way through. Have lots of deep pages, make them relevant. That's why they look at analytics and conversion rates, bounce rates, page sessions. So if you've got, like, say, for example, you're an e-commerce site and you're selling shoes, socks, sandals, then on that shoe section, so it would go like your site /sandals, then it would be / different color variations perhaps. Then it would be different size variations and straps or strapless or all these different things. The more appropriate you make that content on there, the better you'll fit in line. And Hummingbird is the parent of all. So Hummingbird is the official name of all of these algorithms. So they didn't used to have a name for all of their algorithms. They called it Hummingbird. So imagine Hummingbird is like the godfather. All of these sub-level algorithms all sit below it like children in effect. And they all work together.
Okay. So I think can only be a good thing, can't it, really? I mean, not that this would ever happen, but if I owned a shoe shop, we're back to shoes again. If I owned a shoe shop, but my website was piss poor and the user experience was rubbish, and the particular shoe that was being searched for, I didn't actually stock, and just because I crammed my website full of the right keywords, or I ticked all the right boxes as far as sort of getting over that algorithm loophole is concerned, I suddenly rank above Foot Locker. That just wouldn't be right, would it? It wouldn't be fair or morally right that some rubbish website ranks better than others just because it's ticking the right kind of boxes. So this can only be another attempt to give better results, which ultimately is what Google wants to do.
I think what I would say, just to end that on a note on that one, the new BERT update is only in America right now. Okay. So it's in English language. So they obviously do it with English first, but they're doing it in America. Then they'll roll it out. They reckon that it's approximately improved the search result quality, not by a huge amount right now, by about 2%. Okay. But if you think 2% in a month, and if you think of how RankBrain updates every 6 weeks,
that's going to improve.
This is going to be one astonishing algorithm.
Wow.
Anything to add to that, Chris?
No, I'm a little bit confused. Can you just clarify? Yeah. So what is BERT doing exactly? So it's looking at content on sites,
content variation. So it's a self-learning. It's a bit like a thesaurus, really.
Yeah.
It goes in there, looks at the words you're using, looks at the context, looks at the depth of it.
Does it understand like semantics as well? And
completely. Yeah. I wasn't going to say the word semantic in case there's people out there that didn't get that, but semantic text variation. So any version of the similar term. But again, think about it. You write a 500-word article, old school approach. You wouldn't keep putting the same keyword in there. You would do, fast car, speedy car that can go quickly, that type of thing.
There's do you look at the Search Engine Journal?
On very rare occasions.
On rare occasions, okay. So I was having a look at it this morning, and there was a headline that jumped out at me, which is confusing, really. I've got it in front of me here, and I haven't read the article. I just read the headline, which is probably not a good thing to do, really. But it reads, Bing is now utilising BERT at a larger scale than Google. Isn't BERT Google's algorithm? I don't understand.
Well, do you remember last week we were talking about Google and Bing kind of, obviously, my opinion is only my own, but there is kind of this unofficial rule that Google and Bing at one point probably went on different paths. Right. And if you remember last week's pod, we spoke about the fact that maybe Bing have kind of gone into the dark side of Google a bit more. So you can imagine that if Google and Bing are working kind of in parallel with the algorithms and how they want to do things, that it could just be that Bing have paid more attention to it right now. But ultimately, you would think that if Google launched BERT, that they probably should be using it more than Bing should. So it's a bit crazy, really.
So my understanding is that giant companies, tech companies like Microsoft and Google are writing their own search algorithms and using their own search algorithms to deliver results. But actually, what this suggests...
Microsoft got hold of it.
Yeah, this suggests that actually
some sort of sharing going on.
They're sharing algorithms or something, which doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
I would question, and again, I've not read that article either, but we spoke about the fact that Google are using BERT in the US. Yeah. Could it be that maybe Bing are trialing it out in the UK? So that could be that there's a difference there.
Very possibly. I should probably read the article, really, to be honest.
Bad journalism.
I just want to pick up on, we talked about there as well, the sort of ethicalness of, as you said, Ian, if your brand new shoe shop kind of was able to rank above Foot Locker and stuff because of the work you're doing. And I guess SEO does help, with that. It would see that Foot Locker, or we're not sponsored by Foot Locker, so I won't keep mentioning them. But, those bigger sites have got more credibility, so they would, you'd hope rank above. But I guess that, brings versus the ads campaign, there's nothing to stop you running an ad straight away for,
out the gate and then just being above Foot Locker anyway.
Yeah, sure, but there's a big badge on it. Well, it's not a big badge, but there's a badge on it that says ad. Yeah. So people are somewhat aware that, okay, this is being paid to put there.
But it's the same, if you're being fair and honest, you're being, like, the same thing happens with SEO. It's just that you're not paying Google, you're paying an SEO agency. It's basically all sponsored.
But that you're not, from a user's perspective, you're not seeing that. So you're trusting that Google is delivering the right results for you. And actually, it's just SEO agencies doing the job.
I'll tell you the other thing that's quite interesting with the whole RankBrain BERT thing. Structured data, rich snippets and all of that jazz that goes underneath the listings. The BERT algorithm will also read that as well. So it's no surprise that people are being more and more directed, agencies, web developers, marketers, all that, to start promoting structured data a bit more. And then, long and behold, out pops Bert from behind the scenes who actually reads that data. So I think at the moment it's a bit like the whole SSL thing. You're sort of being encouraged to put it on, but SEO agencies know there might be a little bit of a wobble with rankings.
Yeah.
And in the same way that structured data is relatively quite a new kid on the block. But again, it's going to end up, I think, where you're almost forced to start doing all these things. And the more information that's on the page, like you mentioned Ian last week about the traffic light for speed, the more information that's on the site, the structured, the raw data, the rich snippets, all of this, eventually, are they just going to end up in a few years from now, 5 or 6 Google adverts at the top, perhaps 3 or 4 organic, and then just a whole load more adverts? Because every time you increase the space you're given an organic listing, there's only so much space on that page. And is this ultimately going to become turning it slowly into more of a paid search only?
I think that's gonna happen. It's gonna have to happen because Google has to make more money every year. That's just how capitalism works. They have to make money. If they say, "Oh yeah, we made the same amount of money as last year," shareholders will be pissed off with them.
Do you know if these algorithms are shared across platforms that Google owns? Because we know that YouTube, I think, is the second biggest search engine. Yeah, second biggest search engine. So did the algorithms go across there as well?
Personally, I don't know the answer to that, but I can have a relatively decent educated guess on that one. I would say that at this moment in time, we know it's only been trialed in the States. We know it's in the English language. So my opinion would be that they're probably not yet there, but I think that they will roll it out. And I ultimately see them probably doing the same sort of thing with paid listing ads as well. So they'll start to because obviously you get quality score, don't you?
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll start reviewing the adverts themselves for that same premise as well. So I think we're at the very beginning of what could be, in my eyes, a really good improvement. I actually think that an agency that, Chris, you and obviously you guys build sites. I think you guys know what you're doing. So I think people that know what they're doing will benefit. And I think the people that are not being
keyword stuffing,
the people keyword stuff in the back bedroom that do it for £200 or something, I think they're the people that might start to struggle.
Right. And then those businesses that go to those people will struggle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Doesn't it, as an SEO agency, something like RankBrain or BERT really changes the face of how you're going to have to work?
Do you know what? Personally, no. So I know I could sit here and say yes, and we could have a discussion from a different perspective, but no, I don't think so. So if you think about what BERT is, think about what Penguin is, Panda is, Pigeon, all of these other ones that they come up with. It goes back to the basics again. If I'm going to have a website built by you guys or, what have you, or do one ourselves or whatever we do, ultimately, if we end up with a site that we're trying to market that's got thin or no content, keywords in the wrong place, a bad site structure, then ultimately it's not going to work. So we're always going to build it as you guys would in the right way. We're always going to market it with the right foundations in place. So I don't personally think that it will change how agencies work. I just think it'll just mean that people that perhaps, as people do, cut corners, I think the people that cut those corners will suffer. And I think that it won't necessarily, bear in mind, we're talking about a 2% difference here, and not yet in the UK. So I think that judging this probably is something you guys might want to do in a podcast, perhaps a year from now or something.
Have you back in for part 3.
Compare a site that's been cut corners on versus not, and a ranking on both. Be quite a good comparison, I think.
How are you sort of helping businesses that their brand is very much a visual brand and they want to keep content sort of off of their site, the heavy loaded content, I mean? So let's take Bose is a good example, massive brand, so it's not good, but I mean, their website is very minimal as far as content is concerned. There's next to no content on it. It's all about the product and the visuals and video and all of that kind of stuff. If you're a startup business and you offer a product like that and it's about the product as opposed to just stuff in the site with information, how do you optimize a site like that? Because it comes to that
trade-off.
Yeah, I'm a designer, so I like things to look great with less content. And then there's the SEO hat that says, well, actually, you should put as much on there as possible.
So I've got quite a good case study on this one, actually. And which I should have used it last week really for the whole link building analogy, but we'll do that another time. So I've got a wedding photographer, and as you can imagine, what do you want when you're a wedding photographer? Purely imagery, right? So you want to sell your wares through the best quality photos you can do. Pictures of the bride and groom on a lake or on a hill or, you know, by the church or not. The last thing they want to do is slam their pages full of 500 really well optimized keywords and content, because ultimately the user experience will be lowered. So what we do with them is as I'm sure everyone else would do, we'd have a separate blog area. So we would talk and put content into more of a knowledge base. There's quite a lot of hype around calling it insights, isn't there? And you see this like subsection of the site where you can learn more and gain information. And I would be more inclined to write a decent blog on one of those pages addressing what that page is about or a similar search they might do. And then using internal links, again, best practice, bosh those people back to the service page thereafter. Because, I mean, you can talk about alt text and you can talk about page load speeds and all of this stuff. But again, they're kind of givens, aren't they? You know, we're always going to put an alt text on. We're always going to put a bit of content in the heading, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, I would just put it in the blog.
And does it you kind of need to find a place on the homepage for some words, whether it's kind of in little expanding accordion type boxes or something. You need to kind of work with the design to get some.
I mean, again, so let's go back to the mobile updates that they've done. So obviously, you know, you used to have this kind of argument, didn't you? You guys are the perfect audience to discuss this with me. But you had the desktop index, then you had the mobile index. Then you had is your site mobile friendly. Then you had we're going to do a shared index. And now you've got mobile first. Mm-hmm. So people know on a mobile phone that there's going to be more space taken up by content, right? So obviously, if you have a really well-optimized desktop version, it may not look that great on a mobile if it's clouded full of content. So they've allowed that exact thing about the accordion, so you can pop it and open it and expand. They've even stated that they'll allow you to have accordion pop-ups in there that they'll read even though you can't see it straight away, just purely to give that mobile experience better. So personally, again, just back to the basics, is make a good site which works well.
Can you rank without content? Well, not content, text specifically. Are there methods to rank without doing that? Because a site will look quite ugly. I'm going to use Huel as a good analogy, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
So Huel's a startup business. They do protein shakes, essentially. Well, they're not protein.
It's like meal replacement.
Yeah. And their site is a cool site. It's very minimal, just about the product, next to no content on it as far as text is concerned. They don't have a blog or anything like that. They're a startup business. I suspect they've put loads of money into ads, but that aside, how can you sort of rank a site like that just doesn't have a blog, doesn't take on content? It's just about the product.
How would I rank a contentless site?
Yeah.
I nearly worded that badly, didn't I? Luckily I didn't. That would have been a PG-13. I would say it'd be extremely difficult to rank a website with 0 to small amount of content, in all honesty. I mean, again, if we're talking non-competitive, it probably would, just based on, there are key things you can do. So a really clean site structure, that's going to give you an advantage. So homepage /services /subsection of service. Google's going to read that information and start to make assumptions. It's going to read your basic on-page code, like your H1s, your meta, your page title. Although meta doesn't come into SEO rankings, it's still good for, the BERT algorithm. Yeah. So, I mean, there are things you can do. But I mean, if we're talking an ultra competitive industry with 0 content on there, I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but I would think that would be a very slow and painful process.
Indeed, I guess it would just rely solely on sort of link building and brand link building.
Yeah, and I'm not sure link building alone would be enough. I think Google, the digital associations you get from link building are great, but ultimately, if you've got nothing on your website to complement what that off-page search is saying.
Yeah,
I think it'd be really, really hard to do. I will jump in on one thing. This is not my opinion, but it's an opinion that someone brought to me the other day that maybe is worth discussing. So Wikipedia. So there are these rumorings in sort of dark corners of the web that actually Google is starting to refer to Wikipedia as a kind of a backup for these search terms. So what I've noticed, and I challenged it and said, "Are you talking rubbish?" But actually, I saw some logic to it, and I can see a few e-commerce style, geo-targeted pages doing it, where what they'll do is where there's no room to put content in, they'll go put their main search keyword after checking it's got traffic into Wikipedia. They'll look on Wikipedia for similar search terms that Wikipedia is showing in their listings, and then they'll put those keywords into the descriptions as well. So as much as it now, again,
That sounds a bit
it does sound
dodgy.
a bit harebrained and a bit crazy. But I suppose logically, if you think about it, if you think how big Wikipedia is, we all know that any man and their dog can get on Wikipedia. But equally, it is a huge knowledge base of 50-50 relevant information. So if there's a hell of a lot of information there, and it does say similarities, or again, like you said earlier, some about semantic text, it would kind of make sense that there might be this kind of, maybe they don't go for it for a second opinion, but maybe they use other large, content sites like that to kind of back up the reference. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So there could be, I'm going to keep looking at that. Like I said, don't take this as my opinion, but it is something I am going to further investigate.
If I'm optimizing my site now for keywords, should I be focusing on just keywords, or should I be more so, especially with Hummingbird and RankBrain and BERT, should I be looking at more long tail keywords, more what text? Semantics, as opposed to just a word?
Yes, 100%. So I think long tail keywords are brilliant. So again, a long tail keyword, you could either incorporate that. There's a large agency.
For those who don't actually know what a long tail keyword is, can you just...
Oh yeah, so size 12 black shoes with sketch spider on the front rather than black shoes. So a really long term that if you write something of that magnitude, you blatantly want to
something
buy
very
it.
specific. Yeah.
So when you're talking about long tail keywords, I would say almost that approach. I would say write the content with the definition and the description of what you're trying to go for in. Keep the keyword focus in there. So again, if you're talking about shoes, you have shoes at the front, you have a different way, things to wear on your feet,
Yeah.
But obviously a lot more appropriate to the search, not so broad. But then you'd have deeper pages, wouldn't you? So you'd have a deeper page that would have more long tail search in there that all use internal links to point back to the main service page. So I would say, again, the rules haven't changed. Just keep giving good value for content.
Fair enough, Chris.
Yeah, nothing to add. Yeah, I think that. But I think
What he said.
Okay, so I want to talk about voice search and
Cool.
how
The future.
The future. Yeah, I think I certainly more so now will look to Google Assistant and just ask for what I want, and in doing so, the thing I'm searching for, it's a lot more natural. What's the word when it turns voice into text? What's that called?
Voice to text is transcription.
So it transcribes it in a much more natural way. When you sit in front of Google as a search engine and you're looking for something, say website design in Gloucester, that's exactly what you type, right? Website design Gloucester. Whereas when you naturally saying it, it's more like website design companies
You've got
in
localisms,
Gloucester.
you've got random-
Yeah, it's a lot more detailed. What kind of part do you think that's going to play going forward, and how is Google going to handle that? How does that change how we optimize the site?
Well, this is Bert again, isn't it? Our good friend Bert. So if you think about it, you've nailed it on the head there. Typing something and saying something completely different. A bit like when you text somebody, and if you don't put a smiley at the end, you could read it as if to say, they're having a pop at me.
Yeah.
So you have to almost really tell someone, look, I'm doing this in jest.
Yeah.
I think in the same way that Google are using Bert for written, I think they're going to incorporate that for voice as well. So ultimately, again, think about how many people use a mobile phone compared to 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And it's only ever going to go more and more that way. And who knows what crazy thing they're going to come up with in another 20 years. Probably wouldn't even have a phone, probably be in our fingers or
Or in
something.
your brain.
Yeah, or built into our eye. Or
That's
something.
it, yeah.
So ultimately, as technology evolves, Google needs to evolve with it. So I would imagine that the BERT algorithm is the first of a long stream of algorithmic updates to do with voice.
Semantic. And the rest of it. So you've got to be a lot more deliberate then in what you do in your SEO efforts, because the end user is going to be a lot more deliberate in what they're actually asking from from Google.
Correct.
And do we know currently, like, if you hey Google and ask search for something vocally versus if you type it in, do we get the same results? I haven't actually done this experiment. Is it kind of all the same?
Just don't use Siri because Siri's rubbish.
You would
Siri.
generally tend to get the same stuff.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to remember this is an interesting one because this is a question I get asked all the time in SEO. When we're building a website, why do I come up, say, not me personally, why do I come up for Solicitor Gloucester at position 1, but why is Gloucester Solicitor on my position 3?
Yeah.
Good guess on the same number there. Because
mind.
it reads the front, doesn't it? So you have to really uber optimize the site for be one or the other. And although, again, semantically, Google will work out a common similarity from reading text, page title, and all that, ultimately it can be different by a position or two. So if you think that what Ian mentioned earlier about how when you type, say, web design Gloucester compared to I need a web designer in Gloucester or who does web design in Gloucester, it is semantically a different variation.
Yeah.
So you might find that the difference in rankings actually isn't that much at all. Going forward will be null and void, as in no difference. But you'd have to almost say exactly the same thing that you would type. So if you say any abbreviation different, I think you might very well get a different one.
Well, let's run that test right now.
Okay.
I've got Google Assistant open. I've just typed in SEO agency Gloucester to see what comes up there. And we've got some ads, which I'm going to ignore. Interestingly, I don't know how that's happened. But we're
number one.
now it's at the top. I have no idea why, because there is nothing on our website at all that mentions SEO.
At all.
And I have not. I'm using
I might just cheekily jump in on this one before everyone loses credibility in me. But why isn't Alan at the top?
No, but I should mention.
I
as
took
a
mine
caveat,
off last week.
Okay, I should caveat that it's a map listing as opposed to a search listing.
Okay.
So, and so Brace is at the top, followed by Digital.
Now, Digital were number 1, just so we all know that one. I rebadged mine last week and took all mention of Gloucester off.
Okay.
Now, you could question why would I take Gloucester off?
A wider reach, presumably.
A wider reach.
Yeah.
So I'm rebuilding my deeper, more targeted pages, as we said earlier,
Right.
and using exactly the theory of the long tail.
Perfect.
So watch this space.
Yeah. So to get that result, I typed into Google SEO agency Gloucester. So I think that's what you would sit down and type, probably.
Yes.
It's quite abbreviated. But if I was naturally asking, I think I'd probably be more detailed with it.
Yeah.
So I would probably ask, and let's give it a go.
Go on.
SEO agencies in Gloucester. Just thinking about it. Okay. The results are definitely different.
Who's number 1?
Digital is now number 1.
Aha.
Now Digital has fallen off the radar. Digital is number 1 both in map listing and on a Brace is also in there. And won't go any further than that. So yeah, it's interesting.
And then we
I think I prefer search then. Do it by voice.
and then you said, Sam, don't do it by Siri. So do we know what Siri uses as its kind of search engine?
I don't know what Siri uses.
Well, you can set it to use whatever, but you have to tell it. So it would be SEO agencies in Gloucester.
I'm just saying, Siri's annoying as hell.
SEO agencies in Gloucester.
I couldn't find any matching places.
Good. That's why we don't use Siri. Should we do some news?
Let's do some news.
Let's do some news. 5 minutes on the clock.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Facebook have launched a new tool that allows you to push out dynamic ads.
Right.
So now you can tailor your ad to individuals. So not only, indeed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So there's a couple of things that it does. Firstly, it will only show a particular ad to a person that engages into a particular ad type. So let's say that Joe Blogs really engages carousel. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
so it would show them a carousel version of the ad.
Yep.
And vice versa for other types of ads, but also individual names and stuff like that.
I've seen that before. I think a year or two ago, they did their own ads about some elections and they were personalizing the ads, which no one else could do. And they said, hey, Samuel, do you want to blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're rolling that out now.
So we can get really creepy with the ads.
Yeah, indeed. we can now target you by name. name. Yeah,
Nice,
indeed.
nice.
So I don't think that's something that's out yet. They're testing it at the moment, but it's an interesting one.
That'd be really good.
It will be good. Yeah, it will change things quite dramatically. I think,
Yeah.
especially how advertisers sort of push out their content, and especially if I can target an individual by name and show them their favorite ad type.
Yeah.
It's only going to help advertisers even further.
Yeah, until everyone gets sick of it and then the click-through rates go down again.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, next. So Google is putting an algorithmic audio newsfeed on its assistant. So at the moment with Google Assistant, if you ask it to tell you the news, you basically have to hand select a few sources of news, right? And it's now rolling out the service where it takes an algorithmically determined newsfeed. I can't say that word, I'm sorry. But so the idea is to be similar to what you get within like a Facebook newsfeed or within Google News, but just for your ears. And it's all part of what they call the audio web, sorry. And these aren't so much as podcasting, more like news bites. It's going to find things on the web and go, here's the news for today in your local area. So it's going to do it. It's going to use geolocation and all the information that Google knows about you, which is a lot.
That scares me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Really? Why is that?
That reminds me of the James Bond film where they've got the one they're against who's running the newspaper. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
I wonder how long it is before they start deciding what news you can actually read.
Ooh.
I don't like the idea of that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, personally.
It's getting into, like I said, in some countries where the government control
Yeah.
what sites you can
Yeah.
access and that sort of stuff.
Oh, I saw a program on TV about Russia. Did you see? Or specifically
Whoa.
Vladimir Putin,
Yeah.
Putin, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And like how he controls
What they see.
what they see on
Yeah,
TV,
yeah.
and he, it turns out, or well, perhaps this is common knowledge, but I didn't know that he's like a celebrity on TV in himself.
What, like
he's-
game shows?
Yeah, like, literally everything he's like the Katie Price of Russia.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it is quite
I
strange.
think I saw
quite
that, and they show how their interpretation of the news is like just a real slant on it. Like, yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
They're
weird.
like that with
Craziness.
North Korea and other communist states, aren't they?
That's
they
right,
show
yeah.
you what you need to see.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it is before the adverts start to...
Did you
Come up.
see Chris shared with us last night Boris's sort of video campaign ad?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see it? Have you seen it?
I mean, I do watch quite a few of them, but I'm not sure which one are you referring to?
Boris sort of walking through a
It's in like
corridor.
a Vogue style.
Oh, I've not
video
seen
thing.
that
It's-
one.
It's
It's
amusing.
quite-
I will
just
want to
for the-
watch that.
It's different. It's quite good. It's very much made for mobile and
Yeah.
But I think it's of this thing is because political parties can't advertise, now, and because of all that stuff going on with after the Cambridge Analytica or whatever. Yeah, they're kind of finding new ways of being it, and this kind of documentary style. It'll film you making a cup of
Mockumentary,
tea.
really,
sort of
isn't
thing.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is quite like The Office. It's quite
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of
But-
just follows him walking around his office while he makes a tea and he just answers a few questions and then walks
Yeah,
around
like
the
it's not
corridors.
totally scripted.
But
Yeah,
hell, it's got us talking about it, so it's kind of
Yeah,
doing
it's-
some good.
it's
Whether
doing
whatever we
something,
think
yeah.
of it,
But what did he say in it? It's oven ready. Bang it in the microwave. What?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he's talking about his Brexit deal there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Chris, you've got something for
I've
us?
got one, just to sort of say there was also a talk this week. It's 30 years this year that the web since the web was founded. So Sir Tim Berners-Lee did a talk about it all and sort of reflecting on from his original proposal for an information management system. These days, half the world is online. And it was a chance to celebrate how far it's come, but also an opportunity to reflect on how far we've yet to go. So it's quite interesting, sort of almost like a call to arms in terms of, this great thing that it's craziness that wasn't around 30 years ago.
This thing that I
is
built that now
part of-
everyone uses to watch cat videos.
Exactly, and there was an interesting question by Dara O'Brien actually about the irony of it, because he created it to be free, but now so many corporations are making so much
Billions.
money out of it, sort of
Yeah.
thing. Some other sort of ironies like that.
I think I remember watching an interview with him many years ago, and
It's all right. It's all right.
5 minutes is up.
that he's not really happy with the end result. He's not happy how it's all turned out. It's not how he envisioned it to be.
Does he make any money from it?
Well, I was just going to say
No.
the biggest irony is that he actually is the one person that gets diddly squat from all of this,
Yeah.
apart from
Yeah.
his talking events.
That's it. Well, I think there's a bit of a toss-up between if it was actually him or some other dude in America.
Really?
There's another guy. Yeah. There's a bit of a
I think he should get like 0.01% because it's not fair that he built this thing and now Zuckerberg sat there
0.01% of what?
of all the internet companies like Google.
Jesus, he'd do all right.
You're all right,
Just
but
to,
I
just
think
to
he's done
summarise,
all right.
he said, to tackle any problems, we must outline and understand what those. And he outlined three main problems with the web. Three sources of dysfunction, as he says.
Okay.
One is about delicious and malicious intent, such as state-sponsored hacking and attacks, criminal behaviour, as we talked about there.
Yeah.
One being system designs that creates perverse incentives where user value is sacrificed, such as ad-based revenue models that commercially reward clickbait and viral spread of misinformation. Yeah, makes sense. And the third being unintended negative consequence.
What,
of
like kids
designs
being
such as-
depressed because of Instagram?
So, of benevolent design, such as the outraged and polarized tone and quality of online discourse. There's a lot of words in there, but I think it's around that thing. It's just kind of we've got this great tool and it's exploded, but it's kind of let's all continue to shape it positively.
Nothing ever turns out quite how you want it to, though, does it? But obviously,
And it's never going to be shaped.
No.
100%
You put something out
No.
there for the world to use, and you're going to kind of get.
It's just exposing the world, really. It's like the tool hasn't done anything. It's just stupid people have a voice. It's a bit harsh, but it's true. If you go on Twitter, you see a lot of stupid stuff.
That's it.
That's the news. Alan, how can SEO help build brand or support branding efforts?
Okay, so let's go back to last week's pod when we talked about a backlink profile. So when you do link building, which is, I think, a must when it comes to all SEO campaigns in a nutshell, what you can do is one of the algorithms, Penguin, we spoke about before, reads the wording of the links that you build and the sites where they're placed on.
Yep.
The main emphasis, however, is the wording of the link. It's that blue clickable bit of words that takes from A to B, as we refer to as anchor text. So how can it help build a brand? When I write in loads of content, nice, unique, fresh articles out there telling all things like your stories and whatever we get up to, Google will read that content, they'll crawl it, they'll then analyze it, look for relevancy, and hopefully, if you've done it right, somewhere on that piece of content will be a link from their website back to you. The wording of that link primarily should be branded. So I sometimes do an analogy about deal or no deal, but I'm not going to use that one today. Let's just make it more simplistic. A pie chart. If you've got 100 pieces of unique articles, each one website has one of those articles on it. By default, you've got 100 articles out there. Google will look at the percentages of the wording of those links that come back to you. So old school approach, and we're going back to 2012 kind of time, shove the keyword within the wording of the link itself, and you'll go to the top of Google. Google then realized that you could easily manipulate
Game the
system by doing such a thing. So they then brought in this whole kind of, well, maybe you don't want to be doing so much hardcore keyword stuffing off page as well as on. So the golden rule of thumb is write a good article, say 500 to 1500 words, as long as it's relevant and it's not boring and waffle. And then within that piece of content, use, as we said earlier, Sam, semantic text. Ian, as we said, the exact keyword. And in there, the link back to you, as well as other links for authority or what have you, should be a branded link.
Mm-hmm.
So that link, if it was joeblogs.com, it would say www.joeblogs.com, https joeblogs.com, any variation of your brand. So when you're talking about how to improve your brand digitally, the obvious choice would be your digital name, which would be your URL.
Yeah.
So when we look at deeper pages and we talk about long tail keywords that you mentioned earlier, you would actually use what's called the naked URL, the full URL for those deep pages, just to really trigger Google that they exist. So the way to improve your brand via external SEO, in all intents and purposes, would be via content marketing using branded links and semantic variations. There's a Moz, there's a really good, or SEO Journal, actually, I did read that one. Don't go on there often, but it talks about partial match. So in the article itself, if you talk about who you are and what you do in the anchor text, make it quite long, make it quite natural, that'll give you a few extra kudos. So there's definitely ways to build brand and also your keyword focus at the same time.
We talked about some, the various links. Is there, and we talked about the quality of those sites that you're getting links from. Is there a kind of a correct sort of link profile? So if at the bottom end you've got directory type of sites, and if at the top end you've got your Guardian, Observer, whatever sites.
So if you go on a tool, any of you SEOers out there, called Majestic, it's a free tool as well, so you can have a go. You can put your URL in the top, and you just literally hit the magnifying glass, scroll to the very bottom of the page, It's only a couple of things on it, so it won't take very long. And there'll be a line graph on there. And in a nutshell, what you're looking for is you've got two metrics, trust and citation flow. As covered before, just to not waffle on, citation flow, quality of content, trust flow, quality of backlink profile. And it's represented with little purple dots. Now, the best one, the biggest web out there would be the web itself. So I would challenge anyone to go on to put Google into it. So don't, maybe not .com, might blow it up, but do .go.uk. What you'll get is you'll get a dense population of your spammy kind of directory, really, all these rubbish links at the bottom. And as you go up and you start getting your BBCs, your Huffington Posts, they become few and far between.
Right.
And the golden rule of thumb is that if you were to put a little mirror down it, like you're back in school in a science lesson, the two boxes, if they're opposite, would look like an angel wing. Because that would mean that most people will get these drossy, I won't say who, but there are PBNs out there that people get called by every day to get on their sites. And then you've got your really good ones at the top. The actual variation you're referring to is in what would look the most natural. The anchor text, it should kind of be this rough idea percentage. 5 versions of brand in your top range. Then you want 3 what's called partial, brand and who you are. Then you want, say, 2 account, so it goes 5, 3, then 2 would be the exact term you want. So ideally it'd be a long tail search term as to not be so keyword stuffed. So you would have Chris's web design company. Then you'd have Chris's web design company, web designers in Gloucester. Then you would have web design in Gloucester. And then after that, you would then use what's called neutral anchor texts. Follow this link, find out more, visit here, your directories.
Right. Yeah.
And right at the bottom, you would just then mix it right up. So in a perfect world, it would go 5, 3, 2, neutral. And then if you look at your Majestic Trust flow and have a look at the bottom, if you've got loads of click here or find out more's at number 1, you probably aren't going to rank that well.
I've got a question. How quickly can you achieve results for SEO from a blank canvas? So startup business or even just a small business that hasn't got much of
Brand new brand.
Yeah, that hasn't got.
Okay.
Is it dictated by budget? I mean, literally, if I throw you enough money, you can make it happen tomorrow. Or is it something that is just you need to be in it for the long haul and take your time?
Okay, yeah. Best bear me for 1 second. I get this piece of string out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, budget is obviously a massive factor, but ultimately the main things are go back to your website. Is it optimized? Is it fit for purpose? Second one is your competition. You could have the best website in the world.
Right.
And you could have a brand new domain, brand new website. It could be literally revolutionary. But if Google hasn't indexed it, if Google doesn't know any of these pages exist, you've got no one shouting about how good it is, it'd be like having the best singer out there, but until they get on X Factor, no one knows they exist.
Right.
So I would arguably say that if you've got a credible budget, whether you had, take a solicitor in Gloucester, for example, they came to me and said, right, we've got £1,000 a month to do your SEO. And they were they were unindexed outside the top 300. It'd probably take me as much time to get there for £1,000 as it would for 500, because equally I've got to build up that cumulative power.
Mm-hmm.
And really and truly, all SEO, when it's done in the correct way, you're not keyword stuff the off-page links, it does take time to get there. So I would say, in a nutshell, although some campaigns vary based on those factors, I would say probably talking 6 to 12 months really to do it right. Because you can get them there, but you don't want them to drop. So this whole 3 month, I will get you there in 3 months, you'll be on
Number
page
1 in 30 days.
And who cares about page 1? Like literally,
You can be bottom of page 1.
Yeah, if you're the bottom of page 1, you'll have a 0.5 click-through rate.
Yeah.
If you're the top of page 1, you get 40%. So all these agencies that send you out these spammy little emails every day going, we'll get you on page 1 in a week. Yeah, brilliant. No thanks. I'd rather wait and be top 3 in 6 months.
And be there for the long
And
term.
be there for
Yeah.
long term.
But if you have got a huge, massive ad budget, talk to Nels.
No plug.
I had to do it.
Is there, and just for listeners out there that perhaps, I mean, most of the listeners, unless they're in the industry, are going to be small businesses. Is there a number you can put on it specifically for Digitel? If I come to you, I'm a relatively new business, my website's been indexed, it's half decent. How much is a typical budget that we should be looking at to work with a Digitel or an agency like yours?
I really want to answer that and give a really good feedback.
But you can't until you've analysed the site,
ranges
of
are
course.
completely from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah.
And so by default, so are their budgets, right? What I would say is common sense practices first for the client. check if they already rank. So they will have a gut feel of what they want to be found for. Whether that exact term is the right one or we need to get the keyword planner out and check, they'll have a gut feel of what actually what delivers.
Yeah.
If they're already listed in, say, the top 20, 30 positions, then arguably there's more odds of getting there quicker. But then if they're the polar end of the spectrum and they've been going for donkey's years and they're getting no traffic and they think they've got everything there, it could be that they've just targeted the wrong audience. I would just do always, whatever the company is, just do an audit. Just do a free audit and have a look.
Yeah, it's good. There's agencies out there that sort of have package. There's nothing wrong with packages, but because we are for a basic entry level advertising, we do packages. And there's a lot of guesswork involved in whether that package is priced right because it's very different. So it's good to hear that, any agency is first auditing, first analysing, and then looking to put together a tailored option that fits the needs. Because picking off a shelf, I think, is very much what you get in your spam. We'll get you top of page one for 50 quid. Go.
I think if you were to get, any of your listeners that are interested in actually having a look, if they were to go on an independent, because I've got no affiliations with this Majestic tool, it's just a tool I like. But if they were to go on there and they were to put their URL in and answer your question about what budgets, what we do, I bet you every one of your listeners will have a completely different backlink profile. Some will have none. Some will be spammed. They will be spammed to the high heaven and never known. And there'll be all things about HD wallpaper and adult enhancement pills and all kind of a manner of things they really don't want to be linked to.
Yeah.
And then they'll have other people that have got all their terms at the top and suddenly are gulping because they realise that they've over-egged the pudding. So it's literally always start with the real basics. Look at the backlink profile, look at the site, and ultimately just start from scratch up.
What's a good number to see in that tool? I put it in, I don't know, it was a couple of months ago or something, and if I remember rightly, the numbers was 17 and some other double figure. Where should we be worried and start to get in touch with an SEO agency?
So what I would suggest is look at the deeper pages. So if there was a campaign I was looking at this morning before I came out, actually, and it was about vehicle tracking. And the guy was asking me why this other website was above him.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, you do more than just vehicle tracking. You do, parrot kits and you do tire repair and you do all this. His whole website was geared up purely for vehicle tracking.
Right.
So his homepage was the key page. So by default, his trust and citation flow of that page
was ridiculous.
Were really good. They were 40 and 38. But this guy had a decent homepage score, but Google wasn't wanting to send people there because of RankBrain. He had a vehicle tracking page. So you go to the vehicle tracking page, it was like 25 and 30. So arguably you could say, well, hang on a minute, logic would dictate that your scores are slightly lower with a more relevant page. Boost that individual page up. So when you looked at your score, you've probably done what most of us do and just done a 2-minute one while you're watching TV or something. You probably did your homepage. What I would do is look at your service pages because each of these pages will have their own score.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And then you can find out then. And if you have a basic rule of thumb, the higher the score, along with the website ticks relevant boxes. And that anchor text. The anchor text is way more important. Trustworthy scores and citation flows are great. Before you look at any score, go right to the bottom and have a look. If you've got a load of click here and find out more, you might want to get a link link.
Good stuff. Anything else you want to add to that, Chris? Because I see that we've run out of time.
No, except on the question. Well, I say no and then I go on and say something. But it's just that, that question about what price do you pay? And I think it comes down to the value that it can bring for the customer. So that's not trying to put it back to the customer, but I'm sure Alan, the same as any of us, it is the art of digital marketing, what is best for that client. If someone comes in and, they're nowhere on search and they've got no margins in their product, well, then SEO probably isn't right for them, and some firing on some ads that can work for them. Whereas equally, actually, if you're someone on search and a few, a bit of work, Alan could look at it and kind of go, I think we got a good chance of moving you up a good few places after 3 or 6 months, and that gets you that many more clicks and that results in business, then that is when it's really, useful, and then it provides the value for that customer really. So
startup businesses are quite good because with a startup business, they can take an educated punt while making a return. So what they can do is they can put on a really micro AdWord campaign or shopping campaign, set the budgets really low if they haven't got very much, and then learn from that data whilst making some sales. And then that data can then in effect funnel the SEO campaign as well. So it's quite a good way to marry the two up, I would say.
Well, it's interesting you say that because our next episode, also from Digitel,
is my friend Ian.
It is indeed. Yeah, we're going to talk all about ads, which is sort of our favourite thing. So it'd be good to sort of weigh up the SEO and ads and where's best to go. I mean, we know the answer to that. It's both, really, isn't it?
Do everything.
Indeed, yeah. But it'd be interesting to have that conversation. Alan, thanks for coming in again.
My absolute pleasure.
It's been great. So that's episode or part 2 of the 2-part
9.5.
9.5, yeah, I suppose 9.1. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks very much for coming in, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
If you did, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And most importantly, leave us a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us to bring you new episodes regularly.
If you've got something to say around digital marketing and would like to feature on a future podcast, please do get in touch in any of the usual ways.
You've been listening to Hit Publish with myself, Sam.
Me, Ian.
And me, Chris.